The following is an unaired interview with Louis Parson for Science Now. So, Louis, you are maybe the only person who can literally say that you met your dream girl. Why don't you take us back to the beginning?
Well, when I was young, I had this dream that I met this girl, and I've had dreams about women before. The first time I ever had a lucid dream, I had sex with my high school crush. But this was different. Our connection felt, real. Like we were experiencing something more than a fleeting dream. Not even worth talking about. But I remembered that girl for years. Through decades, breakups, different jobs, I still remembered that girl. Years later, I was at the beach in Jersey with my cousins for a little weekend getaway and had a few too many shots of Fireball, and I dreamt of her again. But this time she spoke to me in my dream. Only she didn't really use words. It was like she was talking directly into my subconscious. She told me that she had been hoping to dream of me again. Told me that she didn't want me to forget her. She said something like, "This is really important. I want us to..." And then I woke up before she finished her sentence. At that time, I was working as a bartender, and despite all the pretty girls singing karaoke and drinking and flirting with me every night, all I ever thought about was that dream girl. I needed to talk to her again, to get more information, to find her, but years passed, and although I never forgot about her, I feared it was all in my head, and I finally moved on and started looking for a relationship in real life.
But you did see this dream girl again, right?
It took over 15 years and a marriage, but I did see her again. It was a really snowy night, I remember, because the power was out for a couple days. I fell asleep and there was this house. It was like my house, but not, well, you know what I mean, in dreams. But I saw her, the dream girl. She looked sad, out of place. But when she saw me, her face lit up in a smile. We shared a dream, and she touched my hand, she spoke, she told me her name, Amber. I woke up and it was Sunday and the power was back on and the snow had stopped. I remember my wife wanted to go see the new Spider-Man movie, and the movie was great. I love movie theater popcorn, but all I thought about was Amber. I went to Barnes & Noble and bought a guide to lucid dreaming by, I think his name is Stephen LaBerge, a scientist who had done extensive research and experiments with sleepers. I learned all the tricks to induce lucid dreaming, and by God, they actually really worked.
Tricks to induce dreaming? Like what?
For example, if you check the clock on the wall and then look away, and then you look back at the clock and the time is the same, you know you're awake. Now, if you do this all the time in your waking life and you make it a habit, it's something that you'll do out of habit while you're dreaming. Only when you're dreaming, you look at the clock and you look away, and when you look back, it's suddenly changed. That's a sign that you are dreaming. I quickly learned the ability to control my dreams, at least to some extent. I could fly, I could punch through walls like the Incredible Hulk, or other things that I'd rather not mention here.
Okay, so Amber made contact, then you learned how to lucid dream? Is lucid dreaming how you found her in real life?
I thought lucid dreaming would help me find Amber, but I was wrong. No matter how aware I was, no matter how I could control my dreams, it didn't make her appear again. But that's what made it so interesting. I could summon virtually anything in my dreams, except for Amber. That told me she was operating on a different level from everything else in my dream world. She wasn't just a figment of my imagination that I could summon at any time. Well, years passed and my lucid dreaming interest kind of waned, but I was still a member of a few lucid dreaming Facebook groups. One morning, I was hungover and just laying in bed, doom scrolling Facebook, and I saw a post by someone named Amber Hubbard. She had written an article about lucid dreaming, but it wasn't the article that caught my attention. It was her profile picture. It was her, the girl of my dreams. I shot out of bed and my wife was still snoring. I made some coffee and went to my office computer, and I researched her name and combed through all of her social media. The more I saw of her, the more I was convinced it was Amber, but the doubt kept, kind of nagging. I just thought maybe I was just crazy. So I dug a little bit deeper. This Amber Hubbard was a scientist of some sort. She seemed interested in science fiction and comic book movies. She was also married, judging by some of her pictures and the giant rock on her finger that I saw after zooming in on some JPEGs. I remember sliding the chair back from the desk, disappointed, married. Damn it. I sat staring at my phone all day. That night I made a campfire in our dinky little fire pit out back. My wife was interested until the hot dogs and s'mores were gone, and then she was over it and went back inside, and I was left to tend the fire by myself, which I don't mind. I love sitting by a fire. But anyway, once I was alone, I took out my phone and pulled up Amber Hubbard's profile and wrote her a message. I sent something, I can't exactly remember how I worded it, but basically I said, hey, I know this sounds insane, but do you know me from dreams you've had over the past few decades? My finger literally hovered over that button for minutes. I finally took a shot of liquid courage and hit send. I sat there listening to the crackling of the fire for what felt like hours, every second like an eternity. And then my phone buzzed. Amber had actually messaged me back. That's when everything began to change. I went inside and paced around, messaging back and forth with her deep into the night, and Amber seemed just as excited as I was.
What did Amber say?
She said she'd been doing extensive dream research, and most importantly, she wanted to meet me in real life.
Well, that must have been exciting.
It was, until I realized I would have to tell my wife. Amber lived in Colorado. There's no way I could make a trip out there without telling my wife. Besides, this was a massive breakthrough potentially. I thought me and Amber might end up on the news and books, on TV.
So how did your wife take it?
She thought it was all bullshit at first. It took some serious convincing, but the fact that Amber was also married helped ease my wife's concerns, I think. We got on a Zoom call together, all four of us. I felt like a kid on the phone with my high school crush, only my wife and my dream girl's husband were also sitting there on the call. After we broke the ice, we talked for about an hour and planned a trip to meet up to discuss our dreams and how any of this was possible and, future implications of this. Everyone seemed at ease except for me. I felt like Amber and I were, making eye contact through that Zoom screen. I could feel like she was watching me, thinking the same things I was. I could feel her wanting me. After the call, we logged off, and my wife seemed happy enough to go on a trip to Colorado, which Amber's husband, Alan, had promised was majestic. I looked back at the blank computer screen, wishing I could call Amber back. Just the two of us. I just needed one moment alone with her.
So you and your wife actually went to Colorado?
Yeah, we actually did. About a month later, we took some PTO and hopped on a plane. And I'll tell you, Alan wasn't lying. It was gorgeous with those snowy mountains and the backdrop everywhere. They picked us up from the airport in some fancy Mercedes SUV. We planned on getting a hotel, but they insisted on taking us back to their house. And honestly, for a minute I thought maybe they were swingers or something. I wasn't really sure where this was all going. All I knew was Alan didn't seem jealous at all. I figured Amber must not have told him about us, about how she truly felt about me.
So what happened once you got to their house?
Well, their house was gorgeous, tucked back in the snowy forest kind of thing, really picturesque. Looked like a damn Hallmark card. They had a guest suite for Alan's parents who liked to visit from California or Orlando or somewhere. Anyway, it was surreal being inside Amber's house, just laying down on her guest bed, wondering if she had ever laid there. Wondering if she had ever, made love in that bed. I found a pair of her panties in the guest bathroom. Kinda creepy to admit it now, but I couldn't resist and took a smell for minutes on end. I actually threw it in my suitcase under all of my clothes. A little souvenir, I guess. Silly. Alan cooked dinner and we ate steak and baked potatoes and salad at their marble dining room table, listening to some sort of elegant music I didn't recognize, but it was nice. It was relaxing. I kept catching eyes with Amber as my wife drank way too many martinis, and Alan kept rambling on about his investment opportunities. After dinner, we sat around their living room with these big glass doors that overlooked the mountainside. After a couple of IPAs, Alan said he needed to go to bed, that he had a big meeting in the morning or something. And after that, we were all going to go to lunch, so he said his good nights and he walked off to bed. We talked for a little bit more until my wife said that the elevation was messing with her head, but I'm pretty sure it was just the 5 or 6 martinis she had had. She stumbled off to pass out in the guest room. I was finally alone with Amber in real life. This was my chance. Amber looked at me and smiled and said, now we get to talk privately, finally. I could feel every vein in my body pulsing. I really didn't know in that moment what was about to happen. I wanted to kiss her, I wanted to hold her, smell her, I just wanted to talk to her at least. She said that this whole thing was so incredible. She walked over and stood by the glass doors, looking out at heavy snowfall on the mountaintops. She motioned for me to come join her. I swallowed the last sip of my beer and I could hear it echo throughout the house. I was so nervous. I stood next to Amber and looked out the windows. She said that she didn't think anyone would understand what it's like to have the connection that we did. And I nodded, I agreed. She said she couldn't wait to see where this all would go. This was it. I had to make a move. I reached forward and put my hand on her cheek. I told her something like, I've loved you since the first time we met, since our first dream. And she instantly recoiled. Her eyes changed. She said, what? I said, what? I stood there dumbfounded. Amber looked around as if making sure no one else was listening. She stood for a minute processing it, and then she leaned in towards me and whispered, oh my God, this is my fault. I should have... And she trailed off. I crashed back down on the couch, mouth open and confused, watching my dream go off the rails. I said, I know this is complicated. And I looked back and I could hear my wife snoring in the guest room. I told Amber, we can make it work, somehow. I'll do anything. Amber pinched the bridge of her nose and took a long swig of wine, looked at me and smiled, just a regrettable smile. I'm writing a book, she said. And I'm like, a book? And she said, research on shared lucid dreaming. She said that she knew it was possible, but now she had the proof. Now we have proof. A book. I mean, that was nothing more than a piece of her experiment, a character in her dream research. She said, look, it gave her a rush too, and she admitted she had thoughts of us together, but we were both married. She said, what are we gonna do? Just run off together? We don't even really know each other. And in that moment, I just wanted to go home, never see those damn snowy mountains again.
So how did you handle that? Did you leave or still go to lunch the next day?
Well, no, the night didn't exactly end there. I went back to the guest room to crash for the night, pissed off. My wife woke up. The martinis had apparently made her, well, quite horny, let's say. And honestly, after my conversation with Amber, I was full of rage, this pent-up sexual energy. So we, it was really intense, but all I could think about was Amber. I really hate to admit this, but as we were having sex, I reached down into my suitcase and pulled out the pair of Amber's panties that I had taken, held them to my face, to my nose. My wife was too drunk to realize what was going on as I finished inside her. My wife woke up and said something about the sex being out of character for us. She seemed suspicious all of a sudden. Then she found Amber's panties, which I had accidentally left still sitting out next to the bed. And she pretty quickly put 2 and 2 together. My wife asked me if this trip was all about just meeting Amber and not about dreaming at all. If it was something romantic. My wife asked me point blank, if Amber wanted to be with you, what would you say?
Well, what did you say?
That's the worst part. I didn't say anything. I just sat there. My wife was like, that's all I need to know. Long story short, we never went to lunch. We flew home that day, in silence.
So, after something like that, are you and your wife still together?
We are. It turns out she got pregnant that night in Colorado, but I can tell well, anyway, yeah, we're still together. Our daughter's 2 now.
Amber is now a best selling author of the book Soulful Dream Mates, a shared experience in lucid dreaming. But she doesn't mention you by name. It's reported she made millions off the book in subsequent movie deals. Have you received any royalties or benefits of this? Did she ever contact you to be involved?
I'd actually like to end this interview now.